This is Scott DeCamp with CatchMark SportsNet, and this is our Profile of the Week. We're doing a little bit different format this time, more of a podcast format. We had 4 special guests with us, veteran coaches from the West Michigan Conference. We have baseball coaches from Ravenna, Oakridge, Whitehall, and Shelby. Ravenna's Paul Herremans, Whitehall's Warren Zweigle, Shelby's Brian Wright, and Oakridge's Brandon Berry. Between them, over 130 years of experience, more than 2,000 wins, dozens of conference titles, county titles, district titles, regional titles, and Final Four appearances. Enjoy the format this week. We figured we'd go with this format because it gives a little bit of interaction between the 4 legends. Where is each of you from? What is your background in baseball, and what's your very first memory in the sport? And feel free to chime in whenever.
Well, I grew up on a dairy farm in about 5 miles outside of Ravenna, and I spent basically my whole life at Ravenna because I went through school there, and after that I went away 4 years to college and came back and got a job there and have been there ever since. So my first memory in baseball was in Little League. I was 8 years old. And at those days, the 8th graders played with all the way, or the 8-year-olds played all the way up with the 12-year-olds. And I can remember being scared as hell when this 12-year-old was throwing the ball at me across the plate. That's my first memory of baseball.
Who's next?
I'll go. I grew up in Reese Puffer. We moved to Muskegon when I was about 5 years old, I guess. And actually born in Alpena, Michigan. I think there's 3 people and a moose left there right now. So, grew up at Reese Puffer, played at Reese Puffer, went away to Michigan State, and then came back. And fortunately, Joe Coletta hired me to teach alternative ed, or not? Yeah, I guess we call it fusion now. I guess I can go back and call it alternative ed now. Got a job in Muskegon, and then have been here ever since at Oakridge. Kind of made the transition over to the high school about 5.5 years later. I guess my first, I don't know if you guys, I hated T-ball, but I remember T-ball. And, because you had to put it on the tee. I think, my dad was throwing us pitches in the yard when we were 3-4 years old. And then you walked out on the field and they put this ball on the tee. It's like, what am I doing here? And we got to hit the ball onto the field and you got to run the bases. And, I'm thinking, okay, and I know that, but I've never had a ball on the tee before. So swung it off the tee, ran around the bases. I think it went through everybody's legs, and at some point.
No wonder you hit it.
Yeah,
sometimes kids can't hit it at first.
Well, I guess, and it was just I remember getting in the car afterwards that Dad, do we have to hit off the tee forever? And he says, well, for the first couple of years, and it was getting into the next year, was able to talk the Little League coaches into kind of like what Paul is seeing. When he was an 8th grader, it was like, okay, yeah, move up and hit off a live pitching. So that was a lot better than T-ball, but that was a miserable year of baseball, to be honest with you. Couldn't stand it.
Brian?
Born and raised in Ravenna all my life, went to school there. After high school, went to Grand Valley, played baseball there 4 years. Substitute taught for 1 year at Ravenna, and then went north to Shelby, substituted for a couple of years because there weren't any jobs then. And this is my 38th year teaching. And first memory of baseball, it just is vivid playing with my dad, playing for my dad. My dad coached me all in the younger teams, and was just a great memory. That was just something that we always did. He coached all my brothers and sisters and everyone. So that's pretty much it.
Warren?
Obviously, there was no time limit after Barry went.
Wow, hey, I didn't realize this was a roast.
Oh my God. I know we're going to have to listen to 10 minutes of that.
We can just keep interrupting him when he starts talking.
He's had to ride with me on trips like you had. So.
All conference meetings.
You can't get a word in.
I usually stop at the store and get him a beer so they listen to me a little bit longer.
I grew up out in Branch, Michigan, which is a small community in western Lake County, about 9 miles west of Baldwin. I went to school at Mason County Eastern and played baseball for 4 years there. From there, I went to Lake Superior State and walked on and played a year of college basketball there, and worked in sales and marketing in the Detroit area for a couple of years, and then on to Saginaw for a couple. I went back to school, became a teacher, and got my first job at Martin High School. Martin Speedway down by Kalamazoo.
Martin Clippers.
That's it, the Martin Clippers. I do. That was not great memories there, but the Clippers. Shout out to the Clippers. And then I moved to White Cloud and taught there for a couple of years, and then I got hired in Whitehall 28 years ago, and been here ever since. I think my best baseball memory is I didn't play baseball my first year. We lived about 15 miles from the school. It just was not a convenient thing, and some of my friends talked me into it. And my first at bat, I hit a home run. I'd like to say it was over the fence, but it was one of those little inside the parkers where they probably threw it around a few too many times. But nobody can verify that, so it was way over the fence.
All right.
Let me, if I can add on one vivid memory that I had. When I was in Little League, our coach took us, back in those days, he used to take you to Tucker game. And I didn't get to go to things like that because I grew up on a dairy farm. And when I walked into Tiger Stadium, we're going up all these steps and we're walking down all these hallways and everything. And I looked through this opening onto the grass
Green
field,
field.
and it's imprinted on my brain the same way I saw it. And I went, oh my God. I stopped dead in my tracks. I couldn't believe it. It was so green. The lines were so white, and it was so perfect. I couldn't imagine ever wanting to be anywhere else.
Z, did you get that experience?
Yeah, I did. I was probably 9 or 10 when I went to my first game, and it was pretty amazing. Like, I never had seen anything like it.
I know what you're saying because I had that same thing. When the first time you walk into a big league park, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And even when we played in the semis that year, the first time stepping on a field like that, which C.O. Brown wasn't that, but it was still
It was nice back then, though, when you guys were.
In 91, it felt like you were walking on a golf green. That was the outfield.
Exactly.
Well,
You know how
it kind of sucks you in, too, to loving the team. I mean, even though we've had a few good runs.
Right.
But, the Tigers, being what the Tigers are, you still remember that when you're 8
Sure.
years old. And,
Yep.
and so you're still a Tiger fan.
Forever.
Yep. I know.
So how and why did you get into coaching baseball, and how long have you been in it, like JV, varsity, etc.?
I'll start it. Are you waiting for someone to start?
Anyone.
It's- When I was in high school, and then luckily we made it to the state finals that year, and then went on to Grand Valley. And who didn't want to be a Major League Baseball player? Well, that dream was cut short, pretty quick. And that was just something that once I graduated, I was just hoping that there might be a job, a baseball job, because it's just something I just always wanted to do. It's just a unique sport. It's like no other sport. There's no clock. You got to get 21 outs, and so it's funny. I knew right away that I wanted to. I was just fortunate enough to, there was a job opening at Shelby, and I've been there ever since. But I knew all along I wanted to be there.
41st year for you?
40. Yep, this is my 41st. So
No JV? You didn't coach
no
in
JV. No, we didn't even have a JV when I started there at first. And so yeah, you come out of college thinking you know a lot. Gosh, I'd like to go back and redo about 15 seasons because I'm sure I didn't do a very good job with them. But yeah, been there all along.
I know what you mean. The things you don't know that you didn't know.
Oh gosh,
When you started out.
I know.
It's like when I think if I knew some of the things that I knew now back when I played,
Right.
because I know what was wrong with my swing now. For me, getting into baseball probably was just because I was pretty good at it. I got pulled up, played my very first game for Charlie Ash in a New Zealand tournament as a freshman. I thought I was just going to watch, and it was a Saturday, and I thought, yeah, this is good. I don't have to, ride a tractor all day long and plow the field. So it was in the spring, and he calls off the starting lineup, and I was starting to shortstop, and I about dropped my bricks right there. It was crazy. And the very first varsity pitch I saw come into me, and this is about a 6'4" left-hander comes, ball comes flying in, and I know I heard the ball hit the mitt before I swung the bat. And he's down there going, yeah, okay, good. And I'm going, no, this isn't good. But I just, I'm going to, jump on what Brian had to say too, is there's no other game like it. And when you taste a little bit of success, to me, there's no feeling in any sport like the baseball leaving the sweet spot on a bat. That just, to me, was the thing. Plus, baseball is my dad's favorite sport, and he let us do that. as we were growing up. And I coached my first JV team, or my first baseball team. Randy Helson and I coached when we were sophomores in college, summer rec team. They needed some coaches and we did it. And that was how we got started. I probably coached JV about, well, I think I was teaching for about 16, 17 years before the job for the varsity baseball actually opened up. Gary Meerman was in it, Dusty Fairfield was in it. I mean, there were these other coaches, and I kind of had to wait my turn, so to speak. And oddly enough, that was a sport that I really felt like I was ready to coach. Little did I know I knew very little, but it's different than all other sports, like Brian said. There are nuances of the game that take years to learn. The kids who just step on the field have no idea.
Right.
No idea.
You're 32? 31.
Yes.
Yep.
32 years.
You're in 32.
Yep.
You started in 91.
Started in 91. I probably did 10 years of JVs somewhere. Did 3 years of track before that. And just, had to coach, had to make some extra money, so to speak,
We'll skip over to Warren now.
Let's see. I got into coaching. Like when I got my teaching job at Whitehall, coincidentally the baseball job was open. My first interest was basketball, and there was no basketball jobs open. And I've always loved baseball, and I go like, yeah, I'd be interested then. So I applied for that, got the job, and realized I knew absolutely nothing about baseball. I mean, it still takes years to know, to gain knowledge about the game and know everything you need to know. And I still feel like I have a few more years of learning before I master it.
Well, technology's had a real impact on that too.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm glad sort of that I'm getting out, because the technology expectations now are just like,
Right. Right.
how do you keep up with all that stuff?
I know.
I mean, I went to the clinic this past year, and they're talking about all these, what they're doing at colleges.
Right.
And it's like, I can't do that stuff. I mean, there's no way. It costs too much money, plus.
And luckily, it hasn't trickled down to our area, to our level. I mean, as much. I'm sure
Right.
over in the Detroit
So,
area
yeah,
probably
Detroit
is, or
area,
whatever.
Yeah.
It is, but it's like you guys say, there's more and more about you feel like you should have video of kids and you
Yeah.
should analyze it and compare it when kids go in a slump, and you start to question like, have I outgrown the game?
It's
here?
funny, this year though, I have sent more, especially during our preseason, it might be from field and ground balls or whatever, to kids with not much experience. I've sent them a lot of videos on their phone, because they're always on their phone, off of YouTube, and I don't know if it's helped, but I mean, they're able to see it, where, because they're not going to sometimes search on the, on the internet, and there's so much good stuff out there,
Well, I did that in the winter quite a bit. I had an iPad, and I would, video their swing. Then I'd sit down with them, and we'd break their swing down and go through it real slow and everything. But in the end, I'm not sure how much of that really transfers.
Right.
It's kind of like you hitting the cage and hitting the cage and hitting the cage, and does that transfer to the field?
Right.
I mean, some kids it does.
That would be no.
Then, Brandon, how many years is this for you on
33
varsity?
for me.
33?
33, 30 as the varsity coach. And I guess I got my start just because, kind of what Brian was talking about. My dad was always my coach growing up, and I loved baseball. But he was my coach doing, I think, every little thing. Z, do you have me on a timer here? So it was, whether it was basketball or baseball, I was a second string football player, but it was always, my dad really loved baseball. And I think when I got my job over at Oakridge, Mike Rowan was there, a friend of all of ours anyways, and Mike gave me an opportunity, to coach basketball. So I was coaching freshman basketball, and then we get to the winter, and there's Mike's brother Marty had been coaching the JV baseball, and Marty quit, and so interviews went up. I went up and interviewed for it, and John Swinburne, who was the AD at the time, says, you got a lot on your plate, first year teaching and all this other stuff. And Mike says, give him a chance, because I almost got denied for baseball because I was already doing basketball. So I was very fortunate to get an opportunity to then coach baseball, and it kind of stuck, so it's been great.
Right. Scott, can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's unique, just the four of us, you think about a league, and unfortunately we're going to split up a little bit here coming up, but to think of the amount of years that this group has, that that I feel really neat and blessed calling these guys my friends, to think that they love the game, because there's a lot of sports, I don't know if they always love the game. These guys do, and other coaches, but it's just so funny to see all the different coaches that, since I've been in here, but these guys, these four, along with others, really love the game. And every time you get off the bus, you've got you got to be ready, because these guys are always going to have their teams prepared, and I think it's a unique conference.
Well,
I really
that's
do.
a great segue. That's the whole reason I wanted to do this. How special is that to have four guys like that in one league that have that much experience and just, have been doing it and doing it well for so long?
Right. Well, I mean, and they're all competitive. These guys are as competitive as the day is long, and they all want to beat your brains for 7 innings or 14 if we play a doubleheader. But when it's over, I know these guys are still my friends, and that's just competition, the same thing, the love of the game, and just, hey, we're going to try as hard as we can for 4 hours to try to get one or whatever, but when it's over, I never worry about walking away and about these guys, what they thought.
You try to instill that same concept into your kids.
Right.
I mean, you try to make them be competitive and then understand that this is a game.
Exactly.
And you don't have to take away bad feelings. You don't have to call them bad names on social media or anything like that. It was a game. We competed our hearts out. And if you won, great. If you didn't win, well, you still competed,
Exactly.
What bothers me, I guess, is when kids don't compete and they just kind of give up. Then
I know.
I know when I tell people I've been coaching for 28 years, they go like, "You got to be coaching longer than anybody in West Michigan." And I'm like, no, listen to this one. I have the 4th most seniority in the Western Michigan Conference, a small league with 8 schools. I have the 4th most seniority. It does make me feel young, though.
and why this sport, guys? Why? Because a lot of leagues, this is short. I mean, I bet the experience or years of service certainly don't go as long as this. It's a sport that there might be 20 fans at a game, and it's not Friday night packed, a football field. It's the love of the game.
I think part of that, though, is because I think baseball doesn't have the pressure associated with it that football does. And schools football drives a lot of your scheduling, a lot of the other things. And I honestly believe that a lot of guys end up getting out because of the pressure, or the schools move them out, or the pressure pushes them out. In baseball in the spring is a little more laid back. You don't get quite the pressure. And as long as you don't have a lot of issues with your program, they're kind of okay with,
Right.
As long as you don't have
Good
somebody
point.
screaming at you saying, my kid's not playing, and if that's not happening, then you're probably okay.
Right.
Plus, I think baseball bodes well to having family and kids too. I think the family can come out and watch. And you can get your kids in the dugout, and that's the one sport where you can literally take 2 minutes in the middle of a game and you can give your kids some attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not always true in other sports like basketball or football or volleyball. Or whatever.
And I think, I think I've talked to you guys probably about this, having a dugout and being a little bit removed from the fans is kind of nice. When you're on a basketball bench or you're on the football field, you have people hollering right behind you about what you should be doing or who should be in. And in baseball, there's a little bit of a cushion with a dugout, and you always kind of make that rule, other than mom handing you whatever it might be, Gatorade in through the side.
Right.
This is the guys' area, and you have that little bit of buffer, so it's just you and your guys. That's pretty special. I would add this, though. I've had incredibly good athletic directors. All the way from John Swinburne to Tom Stribley to Ray Schuler to Rick Rule now. I've had great support from those guys. And then our community, and you guys all have this, you have those guys that are Little League guys, and you have guys that are the juniors guys, and you have guys that are travel ball guys. And man, we've just had a great feeder system and good support from the inside, too. And you're right, the lack of pressure for baseball in the spring after all the tenseness of football, basketball indoors, and now we're outside and we can breathe easy. It's kind of nice.
What's the proudest moment coaching in your coaching careers for each of you? That might be a tough one to answer, and it doesn't have to be obviously always the winningest team or whatever. But
I'm going to start with that one. If and it isn't even my team. I had the Jamie Potts team, and would have been 2011. My son one-hit us and beat us over at Reese Puffer. That was my proudest moment. Knowing, I mean, I don't think he got hit that game, but he went out and threw every piece of junk that he had, to quote a major league guy, I think, line, threw every piece of junk that he had and beat a really good Oakridge team that year, where, you know, we've had 4 pretty good runs, but and more than that, we've got cut short a couple times too with real good teams. But that 2011 team was spectacular, and my kid beat us, and so I didn't like that because he wanted to take a picture afterwards. I didn't really like the picture, but
Right.
It was pretty
Right.
special.
You know, I'm the only one out of the 4 that never made it to the Final Four. These guys have all made it to Battle Creek, which is awesome. I think I was there for every one of them, watching them, you know, and which I don't always equate successful championships by not winning the big prize, you know. And we've all coached so many kids over the years, you know, but we all can answer what I'm probably gonna answer. Brandon's was at another school, been able to coach your son, you know, and I was able to coach Josh 4 years, you know, and one of those teams was the year we were ranked 1 going into Morley Stanwood, and they beat us in the regionals. But you know, I've had so many wonderful kids, but I think that was kind of special to be able to coach your son for 4 years.
I agree. My vividest memories are with Zach and Ian. I remember Zach very vividly pitching the first game at the new baseball field and throwing a 57 pitch shutout against Mason County Central. And Ian was a good baseball player. He was second team All-State, and there's some great memories with him. And definitely my proudest moments are with my kids. But you also don't want to leave out when you have a chance to go to Battle Creek. We had a chance to go in the finals. I mean, it's hard not to be proud of those kids. And I'm pretty proud that our program spends a lot of time trying to make kids better people and better baseball players. And I'm pretty proud of that too, even when it doesn't always equate to wins. A lot of people don't see that, but I'm pretty proud of those things.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I would start out with your group. My last JV season and my first varsity season combined was 45-5, because that last JV year was 18-1, and you were on varsity at that time. But there was, every time we won, and I'd get on the bus, and the kids were rocking the bus, and they were chanting "stash, stash, stash," because I told them if they went undefeated, I'd shave it off. and the bus would be rocking, so that is, and you know, you guys' run was phenomenal, and I didn't realize at the time what it was. I mean, it was so early. And not early in my career for coaching, but it was my first year for baseball. So it was like, yeah, this is okay. I could do this again.
Thinking it might just happen.
Matter of fact, there was a guy at the Final Four that said to me, I said, "This is my first year." And he goes, "Really?" He says, "You'll be back again." And I remember that to this day. You can't go back there anymore. They don't play there anymore. But I guess, just like you guys on an individual level, coaching my kids, Todd was 1 pitch away at Fifth Third Park against Coopersville from a perfect game. And he only struck out like 4 or 5 hitters, but he was never a great pitcher, okay? But this stands out because he'd come in the dugout after like the 5th inning. He never put a jacket in his arm, ever, right? He'd walk in, he'd get a jacket, he'd pull it up on his arm, and he'd stand there. And it was just amazing to watch. And he's got 2 outs in the 7th inning, and we're up, 6-0 or something like that. Long fly ball to left field, and left fielder broke in 3 steps. Turned around, went back, missed it off the end of his glove. So, I mean, he was so into the game. It was just gratifying to see him so involved and intent. I mean, it's the most I'd ever seen that. And so the next pitch, he was a ground ball to shortstop. They threw it away. We lost the perfect game, the no-hitter, the shutout, all in the span of 2 pitches. But the other one was my son Scott, who was All-State as a baseball player. He had 18 strikeouts at Fifth Third Park in an 8-inning game against Coopersville too. And he is so mentally involved in the game. He was the guy that would say to you, well, I'm going to shake this guy off, and he thinks that I'm going to throw a curve instead of a fastball, but I think he thinks that I think that. So I'm going to, and we had this conversation one day in the car on the way home, and I'm going, whoa, this kid's way deeper than I ever thought he was. It was just amazing. So those individual memories, like you guys say, coaching your kids, and that's a double-edged sword, because if your kid's not good enough, you can get some, some ridicule from that whole thing. You can get some negative feedback, but that's special. That really is. And then, of course, anytime you're successful, that's special too.
So on a somewhat related topic, what's the best team you've coached? This is kind of a lightning rod question in some ways, but what's the best team you coached?
I'm not going there. That's a debate around Oakridge.
We could have a separate podcast for that.
I'll call it the Bud Giddings group versus the Jamie Potts, Colburn Patino group versus the Coleman Wall and Blake Masterman group. I don't know. It would be really tough if it came down to it. I'm going to say this in front of everybody here. Bud Giddings is the smartest player I've ever coached. Smartest. I don't know how you beat him. I mean, he had Homer, who was 79 wins in a row on the ropes, and we booted a play that they Brian knows that story. Still makes me ill. Fake play, runner falls down,
On
sniff
purpose.
it out on purpose,
Yep.
try to go play. We had it sniffed out. We just made a bad throw. But that being said, I don't know how you beat Bud Giddings, but then when you have kids like Jamie Potts and Nick Healy going 1-2 for you over the course of 3 years, 4 years, and then that last team that I had with Coleman Wall and Masterman and those guys, they were just so scrappy. There was a never give up type of group either. But that's been really nice to have that at Oakridge for 33 years. I've always felt that those kids have always just been tough kids. I couldn't pick. Honestly, couldn't.
I wouldn't mind throwing out my opinion.
Who would you pick?
Weird.
Who would you pick?
I like your 2004. Was that 2004?
Yeah.
Bud Giddings' team. I thought his team was the best.
That
For
was-
us, I mean, he was impossible to hit for us. I mean,
He was Maddox-like.
and the defense was pretty good
As a
that
high
year
school
too.
kid. Yeah.
What was your best?
It was a 99 team. We went to the finals in 98, and we were better in 99. And there's a little story behind it. I think we suspended somebody for a quarterfinal game and we lost 9-7. I mean, it was definitely a better team. That year we hit 76 home runs, which is unreal. I mean, kind of like Paul alluded to earlier. That was probably my 5th or 6th year, and I'm going like, best hitting coach in the world. Fast forward to 2022, and we've been shut out 9 times.
I'm still the best hitting coach. Better than the athletes, so.
Yeah, something's not matching up there.
That lineup was incredible, though.
Oh,
It was.
It was.
Well, you had, 3 D1 kids? David Miller, Nate, Jake. No,
Jake was not on that team.
he wasn't on that team?
No,
Okay.
Fred Hall was on that team.
Yeah.
Brett
Oh, yeah.
Cagney was
Sure.
on that team.
Uh-huh.
Brett Cagney turned out to be a pretty good catcher at
Yeah, he
Aquinas, and Fred was an All-American at MCC, and
Yeah.
George
Jim
Gosling was
Robillard
on
in
that
that
team.
too.
Robarts too?
Robarts?
Yeah, Robart was
Josh.
on that team. Yeah, that was.
See, that was my son Scott's senior year in '98, and he told me, I didn't realize this, but it was a few years after that, because I did this baseball book at the end of the year, and I put all the all-conference players in there, and it's got all their stats and a write-up of every game. It's kind of a little book, and it's a keepsake, so that they got something so they can't lie when they get older. It's what it's about, okay? And he told me, he looked at that all-conference list, and he said every player on that all-conference list played college ball. Every player on the all-conference list played college ball. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was.
Out of our conference.
I know.
Yeah.
I think you can go to other sports too and look back some years and some phenomenal athletes in our league.
Who's your best team?
I have a couple. That 2003 team, we were ranked 1 all year long. Morning Standard was 2, and They beat us in the opening game of the regionals. It was over at Sanford Meridian. I mean, it went all the way around from outfield. It was just incredible. We were 33-4 that year. Just Aaron Gowell's on that team. Just a lot of really good players. And then my 2010 team, we ended up 34-6. We got beat in the quarterfinals. That was the year I thought I was going to be part of this fraternity. It was funny because from running joke about your stash, well, the guy said, "Coach, you need a tattoo." I said, "I don't know." I said, we get to Battle Creek. You guys can take me to the tattoo place. So we won the district. Getting closer, Coach.
So why'd you throw your number 5 guy?
Yeah.
The unique thing about that group was that I can still remember it. It's my first year in the varsity, and we're going over cutoffs, and I'm hammering them to right field, left field, and I'm hollering at people to get the cutoff, make sure you get in line, and all this stuff. And I still remember Matt Broughton walked up next to me and he says, "Coach, we know all this stuff." And I looked at him and he goes, "You taught us on the JVs." And I went, "Oh." And I actually, at that point, made a little bit of a transition between coaching them and managing them as a team. And that I'd never experienced that before because I had done a lot of the groundwork myself, and the players now were players that played the way I kind of thought they should play. So, yeah, that team was really unique, plus a lot of talent, a lot of speed. Keith Crowley's group was a really strong, and they got beat by Hart in the regional game, and on a diving catch in center field, which I just can't believe it happened. I really felt that team could go. I mean, I think we'd been back to the Final Four. I don't know beyond that, but those were probably my 2 top. And my son's team in '98 had some pretty good, but I mean, baseball at that point in '98 was really good in our conference. I mean, there were Mason County had Plinus and
really good players.
I mean, there was a lot of good. Oakridge had good players, and there was a lot of really good competition at that point in time. And consequently, that team didn't end up, winning 30 games. But in another year, they would have,
You want to hear an interesting story about '98? That was the year we lost to Orchard Lake St. Mary's in the Division II state finals. We lost 5 conference games that year.
We got you one.
You got us once, Montague got us twice, and Scottville got us twice. And that's when they had Chad Plinson. He
Right.
he's one of the best that we've ever played against.
He would call out his pitches. He was so confident.
They were so big. Remember
Remember
that?
fastball?
He
They were
just
like
had that
huge.
tight slider.
Oh, they were huge. They had so many 6'3" kids, Oh my gosh.
Jeez, that's yeah.
Yeah,
Back-to-back
five
memories.
conference losses.
That's crazy. I know.
I know.
So who's the most competitive person in this room? And do you have any
Herremans.
examples to illustrate why?
Herremans.
I don't have any
That
examples.
dude will do anything to keep a game alive. He can be down by 10 runs and he's going to suicide squeeze to keep it alive. We just beat him in the Division II Muskegon County Championship. Did you guys hear that? We beat Herremans 9-1 in the Division II. That dude made 2 trips to the mound in the 7th inning. I think Herremans is. He is not a happy camper if he's not winning. And you guys are both
I was going to say,
competitive too,
I
but
don't know. Paul's pretty competitive. I would say you're the most laid back. B-Dub's pretty. I would say you guys are pretty close 1 and 2 for me.
I'd say 1-2.
Yeah,
I'd say
me
Brian
too.
between the lines is pretty damn competitive.
Yeah, there's no
I'd say,
doubt about
yeah.
that. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
First couple of years, I didn't even know if he's going to shake my hand before they.
Oh, get out! But that's why these guys are in it. They're competitive within, and I know darn well
It's part of your nature.
their practices are competitive, and they create that, and that's just, and it happens with their players, and that's why the
Right.
players are so good because of it.
We can have a great team and you guys can be down and you go play you guys and then you got your work cut out for you. There's never an easy game when I play any of you 3. Your teams are always the best coached.
So what do you admire most about the other men in the room?
I think.
Brandon's
they all
always got
have-
good players. I'll tell you
Well,
that. Every
we
year.
have, we
He's
have.
been a thorn in my side since I've been a coach because I
have.
used to be in our district all the time. You know how
There's
many
been a-
district
there's been a
finals
lot
I
of
lost to
great
him?
There's been a lot of great battles.
Yeah.
A lot of great ones.
Yeah, the games are always
We've been-
close.
Yeah, and that's, I would go back to that feeder system that we've had, and, I think COVID's really hurt us. I don't know about anybody the rest, but we're playing catch up right now with that.
Well, the seniors are the ones that really have been nailed.
Yeah,
They're the ones that lost that.
yeah.
They lost it.
You guys have all experienced that where you didn't have enough depth and you had to pull younger guys up. I mean, you were there last year, right?
This year,
And
last
you're
year.
teaching them the game while they're playing at the varsity level. That didn't used to happen.
Right.
Right.
It does a lot more now than what it used to.
Yeah. We went to Traverse City this last weekend. We have 5 wins this year. That's what we have, 5. And I felt like in a couple of games it was like, wow, we played incredibly well. Unity Christian came to our place and we took them to extra innings. They had 21 hits, and we took them into extra innings twice on late rallies, and our kids are growing. And we go up to TC Central this weekend and we shut them out. I mean, we had a great pitching performance. The defense was perfect, timely hitting, executed a suicide, and then TC Central beats Grand Blanc, who was state champs last year, and they beat Forest Hills Eastern, who was 25-0, and we played those 2 teams competitively. So it was like we're growing,
Right.
but we're still not quite there. And that's, that COVID issue, I think just losing some middle school stuff and losing junior programs and stuff for those 2 years, kids don't know as much as what they used to coming to us.
Right. Back to your original
Yeah,
question.
it was-
Scott.
I don't even remember what the original.
No, I know.
I'm over 50.
I kept repeating it just so I didn't forget it. So. I'm just going to kind of go around. I'm going to start with Z. I look at him I see him during the game with his relationships with players. Shows a lot of patience. Yet I'll see him talking one-to-one in the duck, during the time of the game. I see Paul that I never see Paul smiling very much because he is so thinking the game. He probably can tell what my number 8 hitter did the first game of the 3rd inning, and then this guy is just competitive. He's already yelling at his defense, watch out, they're going to bunt it with 1 down, or watch out, they're going to, run this and that. So they're just all thinking ahead, and that's why it's kind of like a little chess match trying to maneuver to get some runs against these guys.
Yeah, and I can do the same. I dislike playing Paul because every time that we play, his kids are always stealing bases and bunting. He puts so much pressure on our defense all the time, and you gotta be on your toes when you play you guys. It's always like that too. You can't take an inning off, and it's a suicide squeeze, and it's a bunt. You just gotta feel like you're always on the edge. You gotta be prepared for Paul. Brandon. I know that you say you have great athletes, but you're not ruining those opportunities. You've been to the finals 3 times, and you are always so good and so competitive. And anytime I can beat you, I think that's a huge moral victory for our program because you guys are so good and so well coached. And Brian, I tell you what I respect about you. You love the game more than any person I know or have ever met in my life. It's important that you know the game inside and out, and I think you probably know the game better than anybody here, and your passion for the game's like
Thanks.
unheralded, ridiculous. I can't wait to hear Herremans have to say something nice.
You got something nice to say about
Do you want to skip? Because I started talking about other stuff, so I can go if you want to think about something wrong.
It'll take me a minute, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to start with Z. Z for me always has the pitchers ready. Man, we are never comfortable at the plate. His kids always think the game, and so I know that there's a lot of great teaching going on pitching-wise. I'd go to Paul and I'd say same thing. Always pressure, always speed. I don't know where he comes up with all the quick kids that he's got, but it's always pressure, pressure, pressure. And if you don't have a good catcher, you're in trouble with Paul. And then B-Dub does all the little things, and I think that just with the you drive me crazy with first and second because his kids can bunt it the right direction. You've always, if you hold your third baseman back, then he's bunting it down third, and they're going to be safe on the play there. If he's bunting it to first, the kid's got a great hop, and he's already at third, so you've got to make the play at first. Just all the little nuances. And I would just piggyback on Z, going over to the Clippers and doing all the stuff that you do. You have made area baseball just phenomenal for, I think, not just the high school level, but then you bring in the whole Muskegon community and what you do with your posts online and everything. It's just top notch. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Appreciate that.
Have you thought of anything yet?
Well, you gotta remember I'm old, okay? These two guys right here have, and I always figured I'm the one guy in the league that probably bunts more than anybody else. I play small ball. I really feel that you play the percentages, so you move runners up, okay? And when they get to second, there's a bigger percentage chance of scoring. When they get to third, there's a bigger percent. I mean, you can score on anything, right? And Brian does a wonderful job, and he sticks out, suicide or whatever, in the key spots. You guys do those things, and I can kind of see when they're going to happen. It's hard to tell the kids so that they can be prepared. And you can shout it out on the field, but it still isn't the same.
Right.
Z is so relaxed during the game. That's what I admire about you.
But his mind's, it's
Yeah,
just going. That's just so
I
crazy.
enjoy coming over to third base because I can kind of hear the conversation a little bit sometimes between him and his assistant coach. And he's so laid back and relaxed that I just feel like nothing unsettles him. And that's probably where I'm so intense in the game that there's sometimes things that kind of throw me off for a second, or I get really upset when a player, runs into second base and he isn't picking me up to see if he should come to third or whatever.
Right.
And that just I've been known to jump up and down and kick my hat when that happens, And I've never seen him get upset during the game. His body language is always like,
I know.
I did say hear one thing disparaging last year to your third baseman. It was something about a butt, and you asked him to move up, and he moved like 3 inches. And you said, no, he's really going to butt. You need to move up. And he moved about another 3 inches. And then I heard you say something like, oh, what the hell. But, I've always admired that about you, that you are very controlled and not laid back, but you're very relaxed in the way that you coach.
Thanks.
And I'm probably not as relaxed. That's one thing I probably.
It lets kids relax.
I know.
What annoys you the most about the other 3 men in the room?
Annoys you the most?
Yeah. Like, or maybe you don't have to be so cruel, but
I have one story.
what's the
I have one thing.
that
I have
you're
one.
like, damn, I just.
Only one time with Paul, and it was at Ravenna, and Paul Schultz was helping him, and he did not want to bring his lineup card over before the game. He was probably doing something analytical in the dugout. He's probably figuring all this. I'm thinking, why isn't he bringing the lineup card over? And very minute. I mean, so that's like I can't think of anything else. He can't even remember the game.
I didn't even know what happened. I probably was waiting to see which players were going to line up, show up, because I've actually taken players out of the lineup when they showed up late. If I tell them to be there at 3:00 and they walk in at 3:05, I'll change the lineup. So I may have been changing the lineup while I was trying to do that.
It was nothing big.
I had a couple of coaches actually this past year that wouldn't give me a lineup card until we went out to see the umpire at the beginning of the game, and that, of course, makes everything a little harder. Harder to do.
Right.
I didn't ever do that intentionally.
Oh, I know that. I was just trying to think, 'cause I can't think of it.
The thing that annoys me about him is that we were in the same district for probably 20 years out of the 32 that I've been coaching, and it was either him or Calvin Christian or whatever.
That was
at year in and year out, and we would play good, have a great season, and then we get to the district
kill
finals,
each other off,
and it would be like, I have it written up in my book. Okay, if you want to look, it says each year, and it says lost to Oakridge by 3-2, lost to Oakridge 4-6 or something like that.
Such tough districts.
Yeah. They were tough districts.
I don't have anything bad to say other than I think Z owes me one more beer than than I bought for him.
I got an annoying one for Zeta. Okay?
Here we go.
Oh, yeah. Here's a guy who shows up at the county tournament, okay, without any baseballs. Walks over to me before the game and says, "Hey, Paul," he says, I don't have any balls.
Wait a minute. This is a family show.
He may have said baseballs. And I said, well, I probably have some backups I can throw in here. And then after the game's over, he says, "Hey, thanks for the balls." He says, "Not like I'll ever give them back." After he beat me.
I had a whole box of balls that game. I go, this is my one chance to get Herremans before he retired.
Well, you're lucky I just didn't go to the umpire and say that guy forfeited because he didn't bring balls.
That's a good one.
All right, so what has kept each of you in coaching for so long? Why do you keep doing it?
I've been trying to move up on the seniority list, but it's not working.
Every season is like a brand new story in a book. Every season. And I don't care if you've got all your players back or not. I've often told this to my group of kids. You look around you because this is the last time that you will ever be in this group, in this situation in your life. It will never be repeated. Somebody's going to move away. Somebody's going to graduate. Whatever. Next year it'll be different. Even if you had all the same players back, there's going to be a few kids that moved on to this team. And I just think that it's unique that you have that new chapter that you get to kind of live it out with your players. Mm-hmm. And the relationship, see, that's, to me, I don't know. When I was inducted in the Hall of Fame, you know, you guys went to the meeting and all this stuff, and everybody gets up, and the class that you're inducted with, they all get up and they tell how many wins they had. And one guy, when I was inducted, said, "All started in 8th grade." And I was like, for me, when I talked, it was like, this whole thing for me is about relationships. And like you, for example, I mean, you know, he comes out to my house in the summer with his family, and we sit by the pool and have a beer.
Right.
I mean, it's like that's what life is really all about. And the relationships that we have as coaches, without, you know, I look forward to this every year. Yeah. And if I didn't look forward to this new chapter, this new development, and every year something happens that I've never, ever seen before.
And so, and I'll piggyback on that, and each of you can answer this. How much longer are you going? And I think we know the answer to this. We think, right?
We're pretty sure. Yeah. Ask my wife; she'll tell you for sure. My wife's been very patient with me for coaching for all the years that I've coached, and there's a lot of, you know, times when she wanted to stay over a weekend or something, and I said, "Well, I got practice Sunday night or whatever," you know, and you know, there's an end somewhere. Eventually, there's going to be, and I guess with my granddaughters coming up, I love to watch them play, and you also mentioned that in addition to the proudest moment this year, all of my staff, assistant coaches, all the way through are former players, all of them, and that makes me feel pretty proud too. And the time's right. I just think it's right.
Warren, what do you think?
What was the original question?
Hey, I was going
it's a
to
two-part.
piggyback on something.
Yeah,
too.
sure.
Now that you mentioned the thing that really annoys you, Hall announced that to me after he beat me second game of a doubleheader, and I'm thinking, that's a really great time. Now I can't. He said to me, he says, "Hey, I want you to know that I'm done after this season."
No,
I
said you can't kick me around anymore because I quit. I beat you and I'm done.
He's done after, so he's got the upper hand. I mean, that's quite a way to, that's
So
a heck of a way to
basically,
tell somebody he's done.
What's kept you in the game for so long, and how much longer do you think you'll go?
Okay. Me? Yeah.
Sure.
Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't have done this 41 years if I hadn't had the support from my wife at home. I mean, that's just the way it is, you know. And what keeps, Paul mentioned something, and they did that little thing in local sports, and the lady asked, you know, why do you still get excited? I said, you know, honestly, I'm as excited this year as I was way back in that first year. And when it's not exciting, somebody kicked me.
Right.
It's time to go. So I mean, we've been in a little funk where we weren't playing real well. And Friday we had our best practice. And the reason why I think we had our best practice because I went out there. I'm not. That sounds like I'm accepting everything. But my whole attitude was, you know what? We get to practice today. Let's have some more energy. Blah blah blah. So I just think. I love practices as much as the games. I really do. I think everybody here loves to teach the game, and so I don't have any timetable. There is a light at the end, but it's getting closer. But I'm not there yet. Not there yet. So.
I think I'll coach until I retire. I've been fortunate. I did to get to coach in 2 different venues over at Oakridge for baseball, obviously, and all the basketball and stuff that went on, but I also was at Reese Puffer, and the one thing that I found out was that it's difficult to coach kids that you're not teaching. And so I think once I retire from teaching, I'll probably step aside from coaching as well.
It's more fun to do it after you retire, though.
Well,
You've got a lot more time in your hands.
You talked about the relationships, and my relationships stem from the classroom, having those kids as freshmen, when they first get to the high school,
right.
And then they're in my JV program, and then I get to see them grow and then come to the varsity. And baseball is special because of the relationships. Like we said earlier, You're not really ever in a kid's face because you want them to relax, you want them to perform. And I love that type of relationship. Basketball is pretty intense for me. And I get a little bit credit. You ask any official, I had to apologize to a lot of officials after my first few years of basketball. I don't think I've ever really had to do that with baseball. And it's just, I can relax, the kids can relax, and that's great. And right along with Brian, my wife, I think Daphne's done 33 years of stats, whether it's been basketball, baseball, whatever. And so she's been there, my kids have been there, and that still makes, we just traveled to Traverse City together. Yeah. And so it's family, and it's been easy for that reason. We have great kids at Oakridge. I just love them.
Do you hate the fact that your last name begins with the letter Z because you always got to go last?
Sometimes. It's been like that my whole life, though, so I've become a little accustomed to it.
So you're up now, Z.
That was my cue, hey? These guys that alluded to it earlier, that baseball's the greatest game in the world. I could watch baseball. I could never get sick of watching baseball. I love that part of it. I love the spring and getting outdoors, and I love taking care of the baseball field. I love the relationships with kids. I love teaching kids stuff other than baseball. And for that reason, that's the best part of baseball for me. I mean, it just makes sense that you keep doing it. However, I'm a little like Brandon. As long as I teach, I will coach baseball, I believe. But when I retire from teaching, I will also retire from baseball. And that's getting to be closer and closer and closer.
How many years have you taught, Z?
I've taught, this is my 31st year.
31st.
Mm-hmm. So I can see coaching and teaching another 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
Unless something goes bad in between now and then. And you're in a great spot when you can call it a career.
I taught for 36 years. I retired from teaching in 2010, and I always thought it would really be neat to have a job where I could just coach, and that was all. Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the relationship in the classroom. I substitute 3 to 5 days a week in buildings throughout the whole. I don't do elementary, but in the junior high and the high school. And I think that was instrumental in a lot of my success with players because I see them all the time. I see them in the hallway. And you talk to kids, hey, you playing baseball this year, and you said you might last year, but you don't, but you can talk about other stuff.
Right.
It's not like when they see you coming, it's always, it's just baseball. Because, I coach football too, and I go to all the basketball games and stuff like that. So, and that's the cultivation of the relationships. I don't understand how a guy comes in at the end of the day at 3:30 from work or something and tries to coach that kids.
I'm not in the same building though, and it's worked. I mean, it is harder.
Well, I was in the junior high.
Yeah, it's not in the same building. They know where I'm at, and I've had them come over, whether it be a noon hour, if there's been a problem, and but I certainly understand that part. I've been a little jealous of other coaches that would be able to have them in the classroom, but then on the other hand, there's probably some kids that probably were glad that I wasn't their teacher.
Probably.
You know what else keeps me coming back is the strive for greatness. Like I look at this year and I can see some failures on my part as a coach. I should have spent more time doing this, and I wish I would have taught kids this. And
That's why you're good though, because you're holding yourself accountable.
Right.
But I mean,
we do.
You strive to come back.
Sure.
I can't wait to get this group again next year because I want to make sure that I do
Exactly.
this and this because they will be better next year because of
Exactly.
that. And I kind of feel
That's
like
the fun.
we got cheated out of practice this spring. We had so many rainouts, and you know, I had a week where we played 4 doubleheaders, and you only had one night available, and it's really hard to do a whole lot of practice on that day.
Right.
And I feel cheated out of practice this year, and I feel partially responsible for not
been the
teaching
worst spring.
kids.
Yeah.
And why I say it's the worst, we've had really, really good practice weather. But like I was telling Brandon, we've had 12 games canceled.
Yeah.
Non-league, you know, I mean, and a lot of them don't want to make it up because conference schedules because of the rain. And that's been really, I know they get tired of me saying it, but about every third day I just say, you know, I feel for you guys. I know we haven't played as much as, you know, but that's what we can do about the weather.
So wrapping this up, any closing thoughts, parting shots on any topics related to, well, especially conference related to the state of the game, related to anything?
I got one story I want to tell you about Warren.
Oh my! I like how we waited to the end.
He was, it might have been his first or second year. Keith Crowley was playing center field for us.
I think I think we talked about this, didn't I?
And one of his players hit a line shot over the second baseman, and Keith Crowley was pretty aggressive. He came in, short hopped the ball, and came up throwing and threw the kid out first base from right center field. And Warren just looked. He looked at the kid. He looked at Crowley, and he said something to the kid about how slow he was or whatever, because he wasn't running flat out. To be thrown out from right center field. He was not happy, I know that.
No, I tell you what, during that same
You remember that, right?
Oh, I remember a lot of things about this ball. But during that same time period, I used to get I can say pissed. Can I say that word, pissed?
Sure.
Say what you want.
Cut
You
that
might-
out,
you might be
Billy.
done after
Cut
the
that
show,
out.
but-
I got so frustrated.
Theo.
But Paul would play somebody really good in the conference and a doubleheader, and you know, we'd be playing the next day, and he'd be a little shallow on pitching, and it would be like a 5-4 game, and we'd have the bases loaded. And I think it was Keith Crowley that you bring in from center field to pitch to one batter, strike him out, and then he'd go back there. And he'd do that about 3 times a game.
I've had that.
And I was not a fan of Paul Herremans then.
You learned that
Or
from
now.
Gary Mason.
Yeah,
Or now.
Mason did that against us
Gary
in the
Mason did that against the
semis.
semis, yeah.
They had a shortstop threw nothing but junk, and as soon as we got runners on, they'd switch him, and then they'd switch it back.
He did it like 3 times a game. It was like borderline unprofessional. But
You're not the only
in
one
all
that's
fair,
experienced
in
that.
all fairness, so I'm pretty excited that I've won my final game against Paul Herremans, 9-1 in the county district finals.
He and I are gonna have to start
He's
playing
conveniently
shots or
forgot the 2 shutouts that happened prior to that at our place.
No, I remember all 9 shutouts.
Yeah.
Who's up next?
I don't have.
I'll go next.
Okay, good, because I'm not sure if I got a final shot. Oh, I got one person I gotta thank for something.
You're
I-
you're welcome.
Yeah. my only shout out is just that I do feel lucky to do what we're doing, and I'm not saying that to be sappy. I think we're coaching a great sport and coaching in a league that we compete hard. Like I said earlier, we want to beat Brandon, want to beat Paul, want to beat every time, but when it's over, it's over, you know. And I've built some lifelong friendships with these guys, you know, and. So it's been fun. You know, I know it's not done. Paul, gonna miss you. You know that.
I want to
You know.
thank you for not staying in Ravenna because I'd have never got the freaking.
Oh, get out of here. Get out of here.
Ever.
Get out of here. It's just it's a joy. And these guys make it fun. So
Yeah, and that's I was gonna kind of piggyback on that too. Is that Paul, it's been a pleasure, and you and I have ridden to McBain a few times postseason, shared a lot of stories, and our take on the world. And
Mountain
I'm
Dews,
gonna-
right? Just Mountain Dews.
Mountain Dews,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
all the way, just so we'd stay awake. No, it's just it's been a pleasure. You're a class act. I mean, we know the love-hate relationship between Ravenna and Oakridge, and it's always been a battle, but I think our kids have always handled it the way you and I have wanted them to handle it, and you know, they've kind of grown as communities in a couple different situations in our communities. And so I really appreciate you and your friendship, and you too, Z, and you too, B-Dub. I mean, this has been really great for me. You know, I wake up in the morning and I get to, you know, hang out with, I would say, some of the best kids, some of the best boys at Oakridge High School to end my day. And then I look in the mirror at night and I'm like, who is that old SOB looking back at me? Because I don't feel as old as I am. I think because of relationships with you guys and the game and the kids at the end of the day. So it can be a tough day at Oakridge with some of the stuff we got going on right now. But man, the end of the day is just perfect.
Scott, we thank you so much. This has been
Thank you, guys.
This has been a treat, a real treat.
You know what I'm excited about is, I know we're trying to end here, but like next year we're having this new conference in 2 tiers, and we have such a strong mutual respect for each other, even though I know that we're competitive when we want to win, but like Brandon and I are going to be in one division and you guys are going to be in another. We have already scheduled both you guys for next year.
I believe we
have. That's like a given. I never want to go without a year without playing you. And,
I believe we've done that as well.
Right.
Thank you. And
We're
Paul,
just starting on ours.
Congratulations, because you know, I would never even want to add up my record against you because I'm pretty sure it's on the negative side. You've been a tough competitor the whole time. I appreciate you.
You had 3 home runs in a row off of us. Do you remember the game when you guys beat us like 31-7?
It was 36-5.
I think it was 31-7. I really do. And in that game, this was back in this.
Don't
honestly,
get me started on this game.
Honest to God, I walked out and I called a timeout, and we had a couple of Oakridge boys working the game, and his strike zone was like this big. And I went out and I called a timeout, and I called him away from the plate so the kids couldn't hear this. And I said to him, I says, if you don't open our zone, I'm going to get an L screen and put it out in front of my pitcher. And he looks at me and he goes, my pitcher's going to get hurt. They're hitting the ball extremely hard, and you're not calling a strike unless it's over the middle. And if it's over the middle of the plate, they're going to hit it, and it's going to come back really hard. My kid's going to end up in the hospital. It's going to be your fault. And he's just looking at me like he's never heard this before. And I'm going, I'm serious. You need to open the zone. And he's going, I don't know.
Z's bombers hitting them.
Did you know that he was also in the Mafia as well?
No,
I'm pretty sure Herremans suicide squeezed to keep that game going in the 5th.
Well, the funny thing about it, in the 5th, it was only a 7-run game, so it wasn't over. But then they started scoring runs, and he tried to put a guy in that did a courtesy run in that inning. Of course, the inning was so long, he probably lost track here of where it was. But
stop the fight, Scott.
Belmonte was doing the bases.
Uh-oh, here we go.
Belmonte was doing the bases.
Gone.
Do you remember the guy that got called out to end that inning? He was 2 steps past first base, and Belmonte called him out.
I do.
Can we cut to segment 2 of this? We'll continue this next time.
That was crazy. You guys, I have some of the greatest memories coaching against you guys, and I really appreciate you guys. I really do.
It's been fun.
Yes, it has.
Hope you enjoyed the podcast with those 4 guys. This is Scott DeCamp with CatchMark SportsNet, and this was our Profile of the Week. Thanks for watching, everybody.